everybody, welcome to Banjo's World, and today we are in Split, Croatia. So this is our third video on the Norwegian Pearl. So the first time it was Italy, second time it was Slovenia, and now it is Croatia, but this time we have two excursions. So today we're going to, I think, a national park with a bunch of waterfalls, and tomorrow we're going somewhere in Montenegro. I'll have my own video on that. And then we will be going back to Croatia the day after that for a second excursion there. So let's go, I guess, catch our excursion bus. In the city we started in, this is probably only the third most beautiful port. Sorry to interrupt your travel montage, but I found something you might want to see. Can you see it yet? Because it's pretty hard to miss. Alright, well now you probably know. It's the fortress from Game of Thrones. Okay, so we just arrived at KRKA National Park, so now we're going to walk around. So the first thing you notice when you come to this national park is big trees everywhere. And I mean, they are in every corner here. And I know this looks crazy so far, but later on, the views just get even more crazy. We found a little frog, and it's making a lot of noise. There's also a couple over there. You are really loud, you know that? And one of the cool parts about this park is it gradually gets more and more cool. Because we were basically just starting off looking at gradual waterfalls and big trees and being impressed. Okay, so far we're only like 5 minutes in, and there's been so much to see. And yeah, don't get me wrong, these little gradual waterfalls are cool, but they're nothing compared to the ones coming up. And by the way, this is technically the first national park I've ever been to, and it'll probably always be my favorite. I mean, just look at some of this stuff. I mean, there's a whole tree just creating this random arch here. Oh yeah, and there might be one teensy little detail I forgot to mention. It's right next to a gigantic hill. And at this point, you can see the biggest waterfall I had seen at this point. And we're from Florida. There's not many natural waterfalls. And the moment you've all been waiting for. Wait a second. That doesn't look like the waterfall I showed. And that would be because there are a lot more than just that one waterfall I showed you. There's even a boat tour that goes around and looks at some of the lakes here. Oh yeah, then we decided this would be a good way to spend our time. Okay, so I think I just found a little mini cave thing around here. And it is really pretty. You can see some English ivy just draping down and some crazy looking ferns growing around this, but this is crazy looking. There's a cat here, and it really appreciates people apparently, because we just saw some people walking up and petting it. It's a human cat. It's definitely a cat that likes people. And by now, I think you've waited long enough to see the waterfalls. And when I say waterfalls, I don't mean just one waterfall. There was plenty of really cool waterfalls. And there were so many cool vantage points just to see all of them. Like, they even had this little thing sticking out, which probably gives one of the best views in the entire forest. I mean, look at this. Don't tell me that this is not one of the best views here. Okay, so we're back waiting in the parking lot, and we're right now just waiting for our bus to come. So now we're going to wait for our bus to come, get back to our cruise ship. Then tomorrow we're going to Montenegro, and the day after that we're going back to Croatia. Okay, that's enough of that. No more annoying montage music. Just playing over and over. Just skip the montage. Just skip it. Okay, now that mess is thankfully over, it was already time for our ship to leave and go to Montenegro. But visiting Montenegro is its own video, so you can go watch that one if you want. But for now, we're just going to skip to day 2 of Croatia after we go to Montenegro. So for day 2, it was nice to see Croatia again. And all I really knew was that we were going into a fort. But what I didn't know is that this fort would be the most chaotic fort I have ever been to and probably will ever go to in my life. And some of you might know that is the Dubrovnik fort. Now, don't get me wrong, it was cool and all, but in Montenegro there was already one fort, and there's also another one after this. Okay, so right now we're in Dubrovnik, Croatia. Right now we're just taking a stop to look at the view of a fortress and a couple other cool things over there. But now we are going to continue our tour around Dubrovnik. So here's one of the side views of the fort. And yes, it's really pretty, but honestly, I don't think what was inside made it worth it. There was just so many overpriced things, and honestly, it was kind of hilarious how overpriced some of these things are. And if you keep watching, there are some pretty great examples of some hilariously overpriced things. Anyways, walking into the fort, there were some renovations being done, which isn't surprising since it was super old. And walking in, there weren't that many people, but later in the day, it's super packed. Although, when we entered, there were some pretty cool architecture, such as this little fountain here, one of many churches in Dubrovnik, Croatia, and another church. And yes, we did end up walking through a few alleyways where there weren't very many people, but still, overall, especially later in the day, there were so many people here. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And of course, there's 3 little cats sitting down, just like anywhere else in Europe. Anyways, this building was really pretty, and it looked nicely updated, like they kept it up really well, and it was a church on the inside. It was actually a really cool-looking church. And on the outside, the design is really nice and smooth-looking, like it had been updated a bunch. And of course, we went through another alleyway, and through that alleyway got us a nice view of these stairs, and then after we passed those stairs, we saw this cool church. And there was a lot of really cool angles of it. And I mean a lot of cool angles of it since it was so big. And then the bell rang.
There we go. This is the second time for the 10 times.
And then we had to walk through another alleyway. Just this time it was way more crowded. And I got to see some more renovations being done. And then we walked up these stairs into what seemed like just a church. But then we found out that it was actually a church and a museum filled with old artifacts. In the center of it, there was also this cool little garden. And it was just filled with all sorts of different citrus trees. And there was these little things sticking out from the ceiling. One was a phoenix, one was a person. And then, of course, there was this little well in the center of the garden. So after that, we decided to go inside and look at the museum. And there was a lot of old artifacts behind some glass, which I thought was pretty interesting to see all these different artifacts. And there were so many of them all over the place. And it actually had 2 rooms, both of them filled with silver and gold artifacts and some other different types of metal. And then we got to the second room, which had some other stuff besides metal artifacts, because it actually had some written things and entire books, and even more paintings just all over the place. And here's some more written stuff and entire books again. I really don't know how old some of this stuff is, but I'm sure a lot of it varies in ages. And then afterwards we had some free time, so we went to a Mexican restaurant, which really wasn't Mexican, but it was kind of weird because we're in Croatia eating Mexican food, which is completely different than it'd be in America. Then afterwards, we went to this candy shop with all sorts of cool little candies. I mean, there's those silver almonds and all sorts of stuff, as you can see. And we did end up getting a little bit of stuff here. They also had some black licorice, which is common in Europe since they don't have red licorice, or so I thought, until I saw this. Yep, they somehow had red licorice. But anyways, there was also a bunch of other cool stuff. And it's not like we got one of everything, but we did get a few different things. And it's not like we filled the bag up super full, but all the stuff was pretty dense and heavy, so it did end up adding up. And at the end, they ended up weighing the bag to see how much it weighed. I thought it said 4.8 pounds, but the guy looked at us and said 48 euros, cash only. And it was definitely not 48 euros worth of candy. And afterwards, we went to this boutique rubber duck store, which of course had rubber ducks that were all about $15. That is if you were buying one of the regular sized ones. And some of the bigger ones would probably be worth more like $30. Okay, so we just got to this ice cream shop and we got some ice cream. I think everywhere, every excursion we've gone on, we've gotten some ice cream somewhere. Alright, well anyways, thanks for watching today's videos. Please like and subscribe. And if you want, go watch some of the other videos in this series.